engineering? Yeah! Do you love math? Yeah! Of course you do, because this is the city of STEM. And I cannot be happier or more grateful for introducing our special guest today to kick off this month of STEM, an engineer from Boeing, the CEO of the Planetary Society, which, among other things, besides educating the world about our universe, they're sending out a light sail into the cosmos, which is awesome. Also, our next guest took classes from the guy who inspired me to be in this, Dr. Carl Sagan. Give it up for Carl, everyone. Thank you. He keeps the legacy going with the Planetary Society. Really, there's no more introduction that I can make. Please, warm welcome, City of STEM welcome for Bill Nye.
Greetings. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mayor Rodriguez, City Council members, Financial Partners Credit Union members and directors, educators, and especially students, welcome to the Space Center right here in the City of Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. Los Angeles, California, Downey, California. Now, I remind you all, we have an extraordinary tradition here in Southern California of STEM, Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. We have amazing engineering achievements, which include the space shuttle, which was built right here in Downey by some of your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents perhaps, or even some of you right now making spacecraft parts that fly above us even as we speak. It's an amazing place, Southern California. We have all this aerospace industry. We have this long tradition, the California Institute of Technology. Some people call it Caltech, where they've made, that's what people call it. They've made extraordinary advances in genetics, and now every school, every university, every college in Southern California is focused on artificial intelligence. That's what we're calling it right now. Someday we're going to call it things. So just look around. I'm not kidding you. Look around at everything you see. Everything you see came out of somebody's head. Maybe even especially this field and the grass and the palm trees and the deciduous trees. They were all put here by people. And many of those people were engineers. I've been an engineer for 40 years. And look, I'm fine. And it was against this backdrop, as we say in the movies, this backdrop, that my predecessors decided to found the Planetary Society right here in Southern California. Because space exploration has changed the world. You know, all the clothes you're wearing, all the phones that you're holding, all the shoes you're wearing, all of that stuff was in general made these days on another continent. And it arrived here on our continent because our ancestors figured out that the world is a big ball. And they figured out how to navigate on the trackless ocean. And we owe our extraordinary quality of life that we have here in North America to the centuries of discovery and insight made by the scientists that came before us. Now, when I was in college, I'm a mechanical engineer. I became a mechanical engineer because I like bicycles. And I think airplanes are cool. And I see a drone up there which relies not only on regular physics, that is to say Newton's 3 laws, but it also relies on the fourth derivative. Not just where it is, how fast it's moving changes, but the rate of change of that change of change. It's cool. Hi, drone camera. Hi, people.
Hi. What's up?
And it was with this continued insight into our place in the cosmos, understanding that the Earth is a planet and the moon causes the tides along with the sun, I was coming of age as a mechanical engineer, and I finished my mechanical engineering requirements. I decided to take one class in astronomy from this extraordinary guy, Carl Sagan. And he was, as the young people say, all that. And I was inspired by his ideas, and when he started the Planetary Society in 1980, I will say to some of the young people, there were people alive in 1980. It's extraordinary. I joined, I'm a charter member. Turns out that Carl Sagan's kids used to watch the Science Guy show. They're all grown up now, they're having babies of their own. And so I was asked to speak at his memorial service. And I joined the board of directors, and then a few years later I was at a meeting of the board of directors, and I left the room, you may have done, and then I came back, they had taken a vote, and now I'm the CEO of the Planetary Society, and it's really been an extraordinary honor. And it was through my friends and colleagues at the Planetary Society that I met the people who explore the other planets in our solar system and distant stars, what we call, and the planets that orbit those, exoplanets. And it was through the study of Mars and Venus and comparing their climates to the climate of the Earth that people really discovered that humans are causing climate change. And so it really is where space exploration has changed the world in these fundamental ways. All the food we eat, all the clothes we wear, and our acceptance or understanding of our place in the cosmos as a result of space exploration. And so with that in mind, I want the young people to, dare I say it, change the world! There's three things I want you all to get done. Just get done, will you? The first one is we want clean water for everyone on Earth. Clean water. Clean water enables a couple things. First of all, you drink the water without worrying about getting sick. Because when you're sick, you're not very productive, as you may have noticed. The other thing, clean water enables us to have agriculture, and perhaps as importantly, softball and baseball fields. Clean water enables us to grow plants and feed ourselves. Then the second thing I want you all to do is produce all of our electricity renewably. Now here in Southern California, we are every day increasing our reliance on renewable energy. And you guys, there is, I can tell you, as a engineer, as a guy who can read science papers, as a guy who's spent a lot of time in this world, we have enough sunlight and wind energy, tidal energy, geothermal energy here in Southern California to run the whole place renewably right now if we just put our minds together and solve these engineering problems. And that's what I want you all to do. And here's what's going to happen when we go 100% renewable. First of all, the electricity's free, for crying out loud.
Yay.
I live in Studio City, which is like totally in the valley. And I have solar panels, and now I have the batteries to store energy overnight. And you can hate me. You can hate people of my educational background. You can just hate everything. You can just be a hater person. But it is fun. It's just fun to get an electrical bill for $10 every 60 days. It's just fun.
Yeah.
So you guys, young people here, in the very near future, you're going to be able to put all of these systems in place. And then the third thing we want for everybody in the world is access to global information. What right now we're calling the internet. What you all young people here may come up with some new cool name for it. But when we provide access to information, it enables everyone in the world to be educated. It also enables everyone in the world to have the opportunity to think the world might be flat. It's not. We checked. For crying out loud.
Yeah.
And so, by the way, parents and students, everybody here, the skill that when I was growing up, the skill we needed was to be able to find information. We were taught for hours and hours how to go to the library, look things up in books, find things in the card catalog. I see some of the young people, the card catalog. This was, it's like this, it's plant-based information storage that you could carry with you. It's extraordinary. You can't expand it. But anyway, we spent a lot of time learning to do that. But when we found information in reliable sources, encyclopedias, books, magazine articles, we generally trusted that information. And nowadays, you go on the internet and look up the atomic number of rubidium, it's going to be right. Atomic number of rubidium? 37. So you can look it up. But the skill that we need going forward here, everybody, is to sort out the wrong information, or the information that's probably wrong, from the information that's probably right. And if we can do that, if we can provide clean water, reliably produced, renewably produced, reliable electricity, and access to the internet for everybody in the world, we can change the world. We can change the world for the better. By the way, 2 engineering problems I want the young people to solve. Our transmission lines, you drive on the 605 freeway, those huge electrical power lines, we want you to make those more efficient. Can you get that done? It's, what is it, Saturday? Just maybe by June 3rd. That would be really good if you could get that done. And then the other engineering problem we want you to solve is electrical storage, storing energy overnight, and then air transportation. You know, the Space Shuttle relied on both solid rocket boosters, which are burning just huge fireworks, very cool, and hydrogen and oxygen, which were taken out of the air and turned into liquid form and then recombined and releasing a huge amount of energy very fast. We want that sort of fuel source for, or propulsion system for jet aircraft, so get that done. Good, and then get back to us. Thanks, let me just check, yeah. So when we realize that humans are causing climate change, you might say, what are we going to do about it? Well, if you had a magic wand, if you could change the world at the stroke of a Harry Potter gizmo, what you would do, everybody, is raise the standard of living of girls and women. When you do that, everybody's life is better, including the lives of husbands. I don't want to shock you. So a key way to do that is to provide the internet to everybody in the world. Now, speaking of girls and women, I'm of a certain age, but the family myth was that my great-grandmother marched in the suffragette parade in 1913 in Washington, D.C. That was a long time ago, but she was very proud of that. Her first grandson, my older uncle, had been born, but she wasn't there for the birth. She was marching in the suffragette parade. My mother marched in maybe 3 Equal Rights Amendments parades in 1973 and then 1977. My beloved sister-in-law and my good friends flew to Washington, D.C. to march in the women's parade. And I mention it because it wasn't that long ago. The Equal Rights Amendment wasn't that long ago. I remember very well, as I was in high school, my mother slammed the phone down because she couldn't get a credit card from the American Express Company because she was only Mrs. Nine. Even though at that point in our story, she also had a master's degree, and she went on to get a doctorate, but because she was married, her own credit didn't count. And I mention this to ladies, girls, boys, gentlemen. It wasn't that long ago, and life wasn't as good as it is now. With women in the workforce, our lives are generally better. And so, as former government employee President Barack Obama mentioned, if you couldn't pick where you would be born, but you could pick when you would be born, you'd want to be born now. This time is so exciting for humankind. This time we have opportunities that my parents, my grandparents couldn't even imagine. Everybody consider the following. My grandparents had an awareness of relativity. When they were born, they had no idea that there was any such thing as relativity. But they lived when relativity changed the world with the invention of nuclear weapons, which resolved this global conflict or contributed to the resolution of World War II very quickly. They lived when nuclear power had great promise. There's still 430 some nuclear power plants around the world, although they're proven to be expensive. But they had an awareness of relativity. But you all are holding phones, handheld devices that rely on both special relativity, the speed of clocks on spacecraft as a result of their speed relative to the Earth's surface, and general relativity, the speed of clocks as a result of the gravity of the Earth. You just take it for granted. Yeah, my phone works. It tells me, I don't know which side of the street I'm on. Let me look at my phone. What a world you all are living in. So the best is yet ahead for us. And so along this line, I think about my parents. My dad was a contractor. He was building an airstrip for the Navy. Before the Navy had construction battalions, the Seabees, they hired commercial contractors. My dad was a young guy building an airstrip on Wake Island in the middle of Pacific Ocean.
I love gravity!
They were bombed on December 8th, which is the same as December 7th in Pearl Harbor because of the international date line. And he spent the whole war, 44 months, as a prisoner of war. If you get a chance to be a prisoner of war, don't do it. It sounds, like an adventure, but it sounds really difficult. But he lived through it. Meanwhile, my mother, everybody, was recruited by the Navy to break codes. She was one of the code girls during World War II. And I gotta say, objectively, my mother was really good at puzzles. There's no question. If she had a Rubik's Cube, she would have done it with left-handed juggling. She was really something. But those people of that generation resolved a global conflict in 5 years. World War II was going on. We got bombed at Pearl Harbor. Okay, we got to fix this problem. Everybody in society came together. The posters, the music, the food, everything was contributing to what they called the war effort. So when I think about climate change, and I think about economic disparity, where some people have a lot of money and other people don't have very much, these are solvable problems, everybody. People of my parents' generation didn't even have the internet. Well, yeah, what did they do all day without Facebook? What did they read without Twitter? They came up with something. Anyway, we can solve these problems. You all, the future, the students here today, thank you so much because you are going to embrace STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. And science, technology, engineering, and math is how we all got here. We wouldn't have any of these tents or flags or poles or lights or this screen. We wouldn't have, let alone space exploration, without science, technology, engineering, and math. You all, I think about that acronym, which I have heard now for 20 years, STEM, 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 STEM. And it's important. And then recently I was at an event with STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Then STEAM, science, technology, engineering, art, agriculture, and math. And then I've been to STEAM, science, technology, engineering, math, and design. Okay. Let's have science, science, civics, history, an overview of math, oratory, that's a good one, and language. And we're going to have a new acronym. School. You guys, I'm an engineer. I use science to solve problems and make things, or that's my goal. And it's very important, but we want everybody in the world to understand, to be well-rounded, to be able to write, to be able to learn, to be able to think, to be able to look things up. You guys are living at a time where the world is changing in an extraordinary way. But it's not that new of an idea. If you go to the U.S. Constitution, Section 1, Article 8, Clause 8, refers to the progress of science and the useful arts. That's in the Constitution, people. The progress of science and useful arts. And I think useful arts was an 18th century expression for engineering. Useful arts would be making tents and buildings and bridges, architecture, designing farms that made good use of water, drained properly and provided water to the plants growing there. This is an old and fantastic idea. So to be part of it today, to be part of it on Yuri's Day, I am so old. How old are you? I'm so old. I remember when Yuri Gagarin orbited the Earth. The United States was very troubled by this. Yuri Gagarin was a Soviet-era astronaut, he was a test pilot, and he got the gig, and they flew him around the Earth in a huge rocket. And I don't know if you know this, but they were concerned that the parachutes wouldn't work to bring the capsule back to Earth. He was a paratrooper. He was a test pilot. He's a Soviet military guy, so he jumped out. He jumped out of the capsule and parachuted down. Hey man, I'm fine. What an extraordinary time. And that motivated everyone in the world to understand space, the cosmos, and our place within it. So that's why I took the gig as the head of the Planetary Society, and I hope many of you today, while you're wandering around this beautiful space center with these remarkable artifacts from space exploration and representation of these remarkable spacecraft that were built right here, I hope you'll just take a few minutes and think about our place in space, our place in the cosmos. When we explore space, it brings out the best in us. We solve problems that have never been solved before. We develop materials that never existed. We learn how to get along and communicate with people all over the world in a way that we wouldn't otherwise do. We would not have the internet without it being derived ultimately from the science, technology, engineering, and math that resulted from space exploration. And the best is yet ahead, you all. To the young people, I'll just say a couple things for you to think about. When I was in second grade, Mrs. McGonagall, that was really her name, Mrs. McGonagall told us, she read from a big book. The reason the ancient dinosaurs went extinct is because they had small brains. So all the mammals took the dinosaur food and the dinosaurs died. And even Mrs. McGonagall knew no, come on. I'm a dinosaur. Okay, wait, I'm a dinosaur. And there's a rabbit. Okay. We're done. Even she knew that was not a very good explanation for what happened to the ancient dinosaurs. But in my lifetime, people, when I was a grown-up, working, at that time I was working at a company called Sunstrand, which is now Honeywell. We were working on black boxes, a navigation system using lasers. In my lifetime, the discoveries were made that helped us realize the ancient dinosaurs were wiped out or finished off by an impact. A rock from space that landed off what is now the coast of what we now call Mexico. The ejected material, for you Latin buffs, the ejecta, was the diameter of that cone was bigger than the diameter of the Earth itself. And it shadowed the Earth for enough time, weeks or months, where the big animals couldn't make a living anymore. That was discovered in my lifetime. So I can guarantee you, that the Earth will be hit with another impactor. I just can't say when. Could be 1,000 years from now. It is, in a sense, from our perspective, a very, very low probability event, but with very high consequences. So we want you all to maintain the spacecraft and the systems we need to keep searching the skies for an asteroid that could hit us. It probably won't, but we don't want to take that chance. If the ancient dinosaurs had a space program, it wasn't good enough. Wham! Done. So we at the Planetary Society advocate very strongly for what we call planetary defense, keeping the Earth from getting hit with an asteroid. It's not, you don't throw the whole economy at it, you just make sure there are spacecraft and communication systems, ground-based telescopes, always looking for these things. As the old saying goes, it's like looking for a piece of charcoal briquette in the dark. Hard to see, but not impossible. Then the other thing that we do at the Planetary Society, and I'd like you all to think about, is we advocate the search for life on another world. You guys, it is an extraordinary thing that Charles Darwin and Alfred Russel Wallace discovered evolution, figured out this process of natural selection, and how humans make farm food through the same process. They discovered it, and they didn't know anything about DNA. They had no idea that it even existed. Now DNA is a word we all throw around all the time. Just think what's ahead for us with clustered, regularly interspaced, short palindromic repeats, CRISPR technology. You all will be alive for these extraordinary discoveries. And so these same processes that happen here on Earth, this planet, almost certainly happened or are happening on distant worlds. Everybody, if we were to find evidence of life on Mars, some sort of fossilized bacteria, some stromatolites is a fabulous geology word, it would change the course of human history, let alone if we were to find something still alive. On Europa, the moon of Jupiter, with twice as much seawater as the Earth. By the way, that ocean was discovered by a woman, Margie Kivelson. If you have an ocean for 4.5 billion years, are there Europanian fish people swimming around talking Europanian? I don't know, man. But you all are going to be alive when these discoveries are made. The Planetary Society continually supports, advocates these missions. We go to the U.S. Congress, JAXA, Japanese Aerospace, we go to European, Canadian space agencies and advocate for instruments to be put on spacecraft in the coming 10, 12, 15 years that will go searching for these signs of life. What an extraordinary time to be alive. And while you're here at the Columbia Space Center, keep in mind that it is not what the term everybody loves right now is zero-sum game. If one person wins, the other person loses. That's not what it is. It's not, do we explore space or do we come up with new crops to feed 9 billion people? No, we do everything all at once. This is where space exploration brings out the best in us. It's such an extraordinarily small investment that leads to these amazing discoveries. So you all, I want you to get out there and get clean water, renewable electricity, access to the internet for everybody in the world, and then I want you to look for signs of life on other worlds, on Mars, Europa, and the exoplanets that are orbiting distant stars. And I want you to realize that everyone you ever meet knows something that you don't, so we can all work together here in the modern world, in the 21st century, and change it. Working together, everybody, we can change the world.
Right.
So, when I was in 3rd grade, Mrs. Cochran told us there are more stars in the sky than grains of sand on the beach. And I remember thinking, Mrs. Cochran, that cannot possibly be true. Everybody check this out. There are more grains of sand, there are more stars in the sky than grains of sand on the whole Earth. Our place in the cosmos is tiny, but we can understand it. We are the first generation of humans to realize that we are part of the cosmos. We are one way the cosmos knows itself. So get out there, you all. Let's change the world. Thank you.
Yeah!
Check out the Planetary Society, planetary.org. Thank you.
There's my audio. All right. Still live. All right, here's what we're going to do, because we cannot all take a selfie back here. We're going to take one huge selfie right now, and you're going to be able to get it almost instantaneously from the Planetary Society's Instagram feed.